Hello, so today we're going to be working with the quadratic formula, and again this is just another way of being able to solve for those roots or those x-intercepts. Where does the parabola intersect the x-axis? So a quadratic formula is another way of being able to figure those out, especially when they don't turn out to be nice integers or, like 3/2 or 2/3 or anything like that as well. Um, So if it's in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 and a is not equal to 0, then you could use this quadratic formula that says x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I've got a little YouTube video here that I wanted to play. Let's see if we can get that going here. It's coming up. Might take a little bit of time here to load. It's coming. So there we have it. So we're going to go ahead and solve these equations by using the quadratic formula. To do that, you have to put it in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So I'm going to bring everything over onto the x squared side, so I'm going to subtract x from both sides. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So there it is. I've got x squared minus x minus 4 equals 0. So looking at that, ax squared plus bx plus c there equals 0. Now that it's in that form, I can identify my parts here. What's in front of the x squared? It's my a value, which is 1. What's in front of my x there? It's -1, so b is -1. And then what's my constant term? It's -4 there. So now that I've got my values, I can just plug them into the quadratic formula. So x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So following that through, the opposite of b here would be 1. Square root of -1 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So cleaning that up to get 1 plus or minus 1. You've got a minus, a minus. What I do on my calculator when I do this, I just go ahead and I just plugged it into my calculator there. And I think I'm just going to go ahead now and just bring up my calculator as well so that you can see how I put mine into the calculator here. So pulling that up. It's a coming onto our screen here. I always do what's underneath the square root there first. So when I plug that value in, I'm going to put in parentheses my b term here, and I'm going to square it minus 4 times a times, I like to put my negatives here in parentheses, times c, and it tells me it's 17. So inside here, this is 1 plus or minus the square root of 17 all over 2. So if you want your decimals, you could pull that apart and you could go 1 plus the square root of 17 divided by 2 and 1 minus the square root of 17 divided by 2. Because that plus or minus there, we need to find that. So let's find the two decimal answers. Let's go 1 plus the square root of 17 and then hit equals divided by 2. equals, and there it is, 2.56. I'm going to go out to the nearest hundredth. My other one there is 1 minus the square root of 17. Whoops. Put something there that didn't belong there. Enter. Divided by 2. And I get negative 1.56. So there's my two decimal approximations. My nice answer there would have just been this. Or if I wanted to, I can go ahead and go this other step here and get my values as well. So our next one there, we've got x squared minus 4x plus 1 equals 0. So again, I'm going to put my ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 in this. The x's are not in the formula at all. Every once in a while I have someone who wants to put them in there. So my a value, what's in front of the x squared there is 1. What's in front of the b term there, it's negative 4. And then my constant there is just 1. So plug in my values into the quadratic formula. The opposite of b, here is opposite of negative 4 is 4, plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So again, I just go ahead and plug up that what's underneath the square root into my calculator. I'm going to put in parentheses negative 4 because it's being squared. Don't forget to put it in parentheses or you're going to be in trouble. Minus 4 times a times c, and I get 12. So I get 4 plus or minus the square root of 12 all over 2. And then I've got two answers, 4 plus the square root of 12 divided by 2. And I got 4 minus the square root of 12 divided by 2. So let's find those two answers. 4 plus the square root of 12 divided by 2. And I get 3.73. And 4 minus the square root of 12 divided by 2. And I get 0.27. Notice I'm rounding that up because there's a 7 right next door to it. 5 or larger, you round up your hundredth there. So let's try another one or two here. Make sure we've got this. So again, this has to be set equals 0, so I have to bring my 7 on over. So I get 2x squared plus 3x minus 7 equals 0. So trying to figure out what my values here are, it's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So my a value is what's in front of the x squared, which is 2. My v value here is 3, and my c value here is negative 7. So I can simply plug that into the quadratic formula. Opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's plug our values in there. Opposite of 3 there is negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So again, I'm going to plug into my calculator here. I've got 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 7. And I get 65. And then 2 times 2 down in the denominator is 4. So now I could find my two values, negative 3 plus the square root of 65 divided by 4, and negative 3 minus the square root of 65 divided by 4. So let's find those two values. Negative 3 plus the square root of 65 equals divided by 4. And I get 1.27 because it's a 5 to the right there. So since I've got a 5 there to the right, I'm going to round that 6 up to a 7, so 1.27. And I can do the other one as well. I've got negative 3 minus the square root of 65 divided by 2. And this time I've got a negative 5.53. Since that number to the right of the 3 is a 1, I'm not going to round up to 3, so negative 5.53. Remember, 5 or larger, you would round up um, the value of 3 to a 4. Alright, and let's try this last one as well. So this one here, I'm going to bring over 2 because it has to be set equal to 0. So you get 5x squared minus 10x plus 2 equals 0. So my a value here is at 5. My b value is what's in front of the x there, which is negative 10. And my c value is just my constant there, which is 2. So let's put our values into the quadratic formula. Opposite of b, opposite of negative 10 is 10, plus or minus the square root of negative 10 squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times 5. So let's clean up what's inside the underneath the square root there. So I'm going to do that. I've got a negative 10 squared minus 4 times 5 times 2. And I get 60. So 10 plus or minus the square root of 60 all divided by 10. So we've got two answers. We've got x equals 10 plus the square root of 60 divided by 10. And we got 10 minus the square root of 60 divided by 10. So let's try to find those two answers there. So 10 plus the square root of 60 divided by 10. And I get 1.77. Let's find the other one. 10 minus the square root of 60 divided by 10. And I get 0.23. Notice I have to round that 2 up to a 3 because to the right of it is a 5 or larger, so I gotta round that up. So 0.23. So there's my two solutions. Now, what happens if when you're doing this, you end up getting a square root of a negative underneath the square root here? If underneath the square root there, you get a negative, like if we would have gotten a negative 60 inside the square root here, you would say there's no solution. All right, and that's very possible that that will happen. So let's stop there and have you work on your worksheet there.